Hello and good afternoon. I am Kebony.
And I'm Celeste, and together we are two vets, one mic.
So before we get into this, I want to talk a little bit about how Two Vets One Mic got started. The end of last year, I had a thought. I was like, because I talk to vets a lot, it seems like about transitioning, retirement, and I was like, wouldn't it be good to kind of start a podcast and have all the information that I've shared with different people over the years be put into one place and kind of organized so people can have a place where they can go and hear about just retirement and it or separating, what have you, and just streamline it so I can not have so many silo conversations. Well, still have those conversations, but it's been a lot of silo conversations, but put it into one place. And I thought, I don't want to do this alone. Who else would be down to do this with me? And I was like, Celeste. Celeste and I go way back, been friends for probably over a decade now. And I retired before her. I retired in 2020, and I was sharing my journey with her throughout the way. And then I said, hey, you need to come over to this side. So I was in Celeste's ear and everybody's ear that was still active duty at that time saying, hey, you need to retire. Life is so good on this side. And so I think I was one of the first of the friends that I came in with, like around the same time that retired. And so that's how Two Vets came about. Celeste, what do you think about that story? Sound about right?
Sounds about right. And funny thing is, she's been retired 4 years, and I haven't even reached a year. I retired 1 June of 2023, so I'm still new at this. However, I was fortunate enough to have access to a lot of resources, vet resources that Kebony wasn't. So when I started sharing all of the, things I was doing, the people I was networking with, all the access I had, she was like, man, we didn't have this 4 years ago. But remember, 4 years ago, 2020 was also COVID. So that could be a reason too.
Right.
Anyway, today we just want to share, before we start sharing all of our podcasts we've done with our guests, we want to go ahead and introduce, our story, tell our story, our transition experience. Kebony's wasn't as smooth as mine. And for the most part, not a lot of people do have a successful or easy transition. Fortunately for me, I can say I thought I had a very successful, easy transition, but I know that's not the story for everyone. So we wanted to give you just a different view of what it's like on each side. So I'll go ahead and start, questioning Kebony today, and then we'll go from there. So
Okay.
with that, Kebony, can you share your military background and experience with everyone, with me?
Well, I joined in 1999, right out of high school. I just want to give a shout out to the hometown. I'm from Bessemer, Alabama. Stand up, Big Bessemer. But I joined right out of high school. I was in ROTC for 3 years in high school. I had some phenomenal instructors. They were like role models to the nth degree. I still love them to this day. But I joined and I ended up becoming dental. That was the career field I joined in. Probably around my 10, 12-year mark, around the time I met Celeste at Dyess Air Force Base, I was like, I need to do something different. I needed to change. So I just started looking for special duties. And I ended up going to the Barnes Center for Enlisted Education as an ISD, instructional systems design. Did that for 4 years, the best job I ever had in the military. Then went back to the dental career field. Because I had promoted, I would get pulled in for kind of superintendent duty a lot. And that's when I got exposed to healthcare on a broader scale, I guess you could say, by helping the commander. So just seeing how the clinic ran on a different level. And that's when I kind of decided that when I got out that I would be in healthcare administration. I knew I didn't want to do dental because of a lot of reasons, pay, just how fast you kind of cap out, and just the interest for me. So I wanted to do something a little different. So in 2019, it was a lot going on in my job. It was cool for the most part, but it was just a lot of other stuff. And I was like, I'm tired of this. I just don't know if I want to keep going. So it was like on a whim. I think it was like August or September. I called my husband, I remember, and I said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I want to retire. He was like, okay, well, so yeah, I hit the button and I didn't even give myself a year out. Um, I wanted to retire that next April. And so when I hit the button, everything moved at a rapid pace. I didn't do what people are doing now, skill bridge. All of that stuff, I didn't do any of that. I just hit the button. I still worked really up until that December, and I had my ceremony in January. So all of this transition time that kind of people get now that I'm glad people are taking advantage of, I didn't. So that's the skinny version of my background, how I came in when I retired, hit the button. Not even 6 months later, I don't believe I was out on terminal leave the end of January. So that's a little bit about my Air Force story, how I started and how I retired.
So while you were getting out or when you get out, like what were your career aspirations in the civilian world?
I knew I wanted to work in healthcare administration, but I didn't even know what that looked like. I knew that I was good at operations, just how a clinic ran, but I did not necessarily want to be clinical. I kind of wanted to work on the business side of healthcare. Still didn't even really knew what that meant. Keeping in mind, I did retire during the pandemic. I thought I was going to, first, I thought I was going to be working in the film industry and just, blow up from there. But I got laid off from a job in the film industry. And I said, well, maybe I need to give myself a break because I started working on terminal leave. So I was like, well, maybe I do need a break. I was like, well, let me just chill out. I started that job in January and March, laid off pandemic, thought the pandemic was just going to be a fly by night thing. We're going to shut down for 2 weeks. The world was going to get back to where it used to be. We all know that was not true. It wasn't the case. So chilled out. I found out that I don't do well with idle time, just nothing to do. I felt like a teenager all over again. I was going to sleep late, waking up late, binge watching Netflix, eating bonbons. I gained like 25 pounds during the pandemic. And I was like, yeah, I need a job. So I just started searching remote jobs. I mean, it was the pandemic. I didn't want to be around people for obvious reasons. This is before vaccine, before anything. So I just started searching remote healthcare jobs and came across a job in Humana. It was for like a supervisor of care navigators. Sounded easy enough. I thought it was going to be case management. That really wasn't the case. But I was like, oh, I think I can do this. And it kind of catapulted me into the healthcare space in regards to insurance and payers and whatnot.
So, with your military background and experience, what do you think, what do you believe were highly transferable skills to the civilian jobs that you currently held?
I think basic program management. I feel like, and just basic leadership. I think the Air Force prepares us for that well because they give it to us often and early. So I feel like any program, I mean, agnostic, any kind of program in the industry, I feel like if you give it to me, I can run it because of my skills in the Air Force. Leadership, just dealing with people, just basic things that you wouldn't think about that they're not really big on based on my experience on the outside, regular communication, feedback, professional development, growth. I remember having a conversation with one of the employees that I supervised about where does she see herself, career progression. And she was like, no one has ever talked to me about this. I've never been on a job where people asked me what I wanted to do. Have I thought about different things? So I definitely think the Air Force prepared me. Program management, leadership, talking to people, feedback. Yeah, definitely prepared me.
Now, as far as any challenges and adjustments, did you encounter any challenges while you transitioned?
Like what? What would you say?
Well, yours was kind of short. So even dealing with, VA disability, the pay, you already talked about finding a job. That was pretty easy. The common stories you usually hear that people are really worried about. Did you struggle through any of that besides a job or, getting your pay corrected?
Well, it took me 3 months to find a job. I think I started looking it took about 3 months. I started looking in April. I didn't get hired until that end of June, started in July. So I think it's not as easy as you would think it is. I think sometimes, based on the stories you hear, you feel like you're going to go out there and get something right away, or like, no, you got to put some work in. I think another thing that was challenging, I think you could say, is I had to rebrand myself. My resume was dental heavy. So I had to flip a lot of things around to make, to illustrate my program management operation side more. I can't say I had a loss of purpose per se, but that was the first time I had been without anything to do.
Okay.
So I think it was a challenge to just sit with myself so to speak. Like, okay, like, I mean, I get up and I have no agenda. That had not been the case for almost 21 years. So I guess, yeah, that was a challenge. I never had to just sit in my own thoughts for that long. I had cleaned every room in my house. I reorganized closets. I mean, I was tapped out. And then now I was like, okay, I'll watch TV. I might read a book.
Mhm.
But that loss of like, okay, what's next? That was a little different. Some challenges I didn't have though. I can't say I missed the Air Force though. I can't say I missed anything. I know a lot of people miss the camaraderie or just the people, and that wasn't my experience. And I know more and more people that get out, that's not their experience either. So
Yeah.
I think I think the main challenge was how do I command my own day
Mhm.
without having somebody telling me what to do or a job to do it. So I had to get used to that.
I know while I was getting out, there's resources afforded to me. A lot of people were getting extra certifications, education. Did you pursue any additional education or certifications or training to prepare you a little bit more for some civilian jobs?
I know probably about a year or maybe a year and a half before I got out, retired Colonel Alan Lake, he came. I saw an email come out and say, hey, he's offering this business continuity certificate to, transitioning veterans. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I looked it up a little bit. And so I went to the class and I thought it was great. And it opened my eyes up to a new world about continuity. I mean, in the military, that's what we do, right? We plan for
Mhm.
when things go wrong. Like either you're at war or you're planning for war. So I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. So I did that. That was cool. I was like, let me put this in my tool belt. Everybody was getting the PMP too.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
signed up for a PMP boot camp and I failed that test with flying colors.
I got a lot.
I
I'm
mean,
working on that now
failed.
too.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
it
feeling
feels
them
like, yeah, I feel like it's like a rite of passage, right? Like when you get out, everybody's getting the PMP, but even
because we're
talk,
all program managers, right? That's
but I
all we
think
do is,
really though, I think what we're really operations manager. I don't know if
yeah.
we want to be. I talked to Colonel Lake, and he was like, "Do you really want to be a project manager?" And project management looks totally different on the outside, doesn't it, than it does on the inside, right? So
Mhm.
I was like, and after I failed that test, that was confirmation that that was for me. So I did want to get my master's degree though. So I
Okay.
started, I got accepted into Howard University the August of 2020, and I started my master's degree because I felt like I needed to close the gap to be competitive because I knew I had those things. I knew I had leadership program management, but it's another thing I kind of learned on the outside, if you will, is that I think they reward loyalty. I think on the outside. So, and I have a lot of experience, but it wasn't in the civilian sector, and I knew MBAs
Mhm.
were highly respected in any field. So I was like, let me get my MBA, and I ended up enrolling into the executive MBA program. So I did want to get more education to close what I perceived as a gap between my civilian experience. So I did do that to make myself more competitive.
So let's talk about networking and support. When I was getting out, that's all I'd hear. Oh, you got to network, 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 network. And I'm like, what does that really mean? I mean, I know what it means, but it's a lot different as a civilian versus in the military. So, how important is networking in the civilian market, and what strategies did you use to build a professional network?
I didn't really have a network outside of the military. And that concept is still a little foreign to me. It's like I'm an introvert. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm just gonna cold, you know, hit up people in LinkedIn and say, hey, let's connect. The concept is still a little foreign to me, to be honest, though. But
Mhm.
I think we have networked while we were in and didn't even know it just by the relationships we made along the way. I think network is important for people getting out, that you reach out to people that are in industries that you want to be in. I wish I kind of would have done that to kind of see how things worked a little bit more. Now I can say I have a good professional network outside of the military because I've been to three different organizations now,
Okay.
and I know people who knows people. So when jobs come up, people are sending me ads, old people reaching back out to me about job opportunities. So it's built up along the way, but just the relationship that we made while we were in, that's kind of a network because eventually those people get out too, or they know somebody that knows somebody. A lot of jobs come off referrals.
Yeah,
So I think networking is good, but you probably have a better grasp on networking than me, to be honest.
that I do. My
How would you
friend.
say networking has been for you? To be, I mean, because I still don't know if I'm doing it well.
It's funny because you're the one that introduced me to LinkedIn years ago, and I was like, "What is this? I don't know what this is." And now
Right,
I'm like a LinkedIn queen.
right.
Um, yeah, that's all they talked about in TAPS and all these other courses I took. And I joined something called Four Block, and it was the networking thing. And I'm like, man, what is this networking? Like, I don't. That's all we're going to be doing is networking. Like, I need to learn some stuff. But
Right.
I'm glad I did because in that organization, they bring on a lot of corporate organizations that you get to network, like with the veterans in that organization, and you start
Mm-hmm.
creating those relationships, and it leads to another relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
once I got into doing that, that's how I was able to build my network, and I believe it wholeheartedly helped me get land my first job right out of the
Mm-hmm.
military because of the networking I was doing. So, but when
Mm-hmm.
we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it really does work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, as far as goals and aspirations, what are your long-term career and life goals post military since you've been out, and how do they align with your values and passions?
Long term goal: make as much money as I can before I want
Yeah,
to
right.
retire. The opportunity gap is closing. I don't want to work forever.
Mhm.
But I enjoy working right now, and I have to maximize that. So, as far as a title, maybe to be a director of operations at a company, I want to get more involved in my community. I
Mhm.
don't think like where I live. I don't usually know what's going on, so I need to get tapped in more in my own community where I live to know like what's going on. I don't think I ever really worried about that when I was in because I knew I was leaving, but I think I want to get more tapped in. I'm always working on something. So
Yeah. If it's not a book,
film.
if it's not a podcast, if it's not dropping the show for somebody, a script,
And just
everything's everywhere.
exploring what I want to do,
Mhm.
doing what I want to do when I want to do it. I, that's my goal. If I want to work, I want to work. If I don't want to work, I don't want to work. So I've to leverage my place is all about me having autonomy and decision making. So I want to work myself into a place, and I think I'm always there, almost there, where I don't have to do anything out if I don't want to do it. I don't want to have to do anything. So that's really my long term goal, and to give back. So this is a part of me giving back to Vest One Mike. I see this evolving. I see different things coming out of this, but maybe I'm thinking about career coaching, being a
Yes.
career coach. I'm really thinking about that. I've had more than one person say that I might be good at that, but it's just about my time right now. And so I think that's what it aligns with. I think that's where I am right now.
Okay. And I guess lastly, advice for transitioning members. What would you offer to fellow service members who are preparing for their transition to civilian life? Excuse me.
I would say start early. I would not advise people to do what I did. I kind of retired on a whim.
Hmm.
Uh, I didn't really
Mistake.
explore I didn't really explore resources. Next thing you know, I was in tabs, and I enjoy tabs. I know tabs gets a bad rap, and I'm not saying it's the best compared to some of the things that I've seen on the outside, but it wasn't like that bad. I was excited to go to tabs. I learned some stuff. They connected me to higher heroes. They helped me do my
Hmm.
first resume.
Yeah.
But I would say start as early as you can and really get your finances in order. I think money is a big reason why people don't retire. So
Hmm.
I paid off a huge credit card maybe 2 or 3 years before I retired. I knew I was coming up on 20, and I was like, this is dumb. I've had this credit card for years. I don't want it anymore. So paid off that, built up a savings account. I think money is a huge factor, right? People are like, what am I going to do? What if I don't get a job right away? And so the more you can have before you retire, the better. So you're not pressed. at least 6 months worth of savings to where you don't have to do anything that you don't want to
Mhm.
do. And you don't put yourself into a career path or a job that you don't like just because you needed some money. And just no, get all the resources you can. I think you're really a perfect example of somebody that knew they were retiring and took advantage of everything that you could have taken advantage of. So
Everything.
no, I think no, I think that's what I would say.
I heard you bring up TAPS and Hire Heroes. Were there any other resources or organizations for veterans or people retiring that you knew about that you can share?
I knew nothing. All I knew was taps. I
That's
didn't
good.
know anything else.
Yeah.
Like now people are doing skill bridge. I'm like, I mean, 6 months out, then they got like 90 days of leave and then 2 weeks of, house hunting. I'm like, where was all this when I retired?
This
And it
it
was
was
there.
available. It was
I did
available during
not
that time, but I guess you retired so early, you did it so fast that you didn't have time to look into that. So it
no,
really
and
didn't matter.
that's really not my personality. I don't really do things like that. I
Mm,
must have been fed up. Anyway,
possibly. That'll be
uh
another conversation another day.
right. So no, I didn't take advantage of really anything besides taps. And I
Mm.
wish I had. I really do. I think it all worked out. I can't complain. I am having a great time post military. But take advantage of everything you can.
Well, that concludes, our stories, our podcast for today. Make sure you guys stay tuned for our next one, and it'll be myself explaining my career journey, how I had a very successful one, and be able to share all the networking and veteran resources for you guys. So that's it. Two vets, one mic. We're out.
All right. See you next week.